If you move, you die. The cold metal of the gun pressed harder against Adana's temple. Her breath caught in her throat, but she refused to tremble. She'd come here to do the right thing, to return what didn't belong to her. And now she stood in what looked like a fortress, surrounded by men in black suits whose eyes held no mercy. "I just came to return the briefcase," she said quietly, her voice steadier than she felt. "I found it at the bar where I work. There was a number inside." The man holding the gun didn't lower it. Behind him, others whispered in Korean, their tones sharp with suspicion. One of them stepped forward, older than the rest, his face carved with authority. "A black woman," he said in English, his accent thick. "Returning money. Boss will not believe this." Adana's jaw tightened. She knew what he was implying. The stereotype was as old as time itself, and it burned in her chest like acid. But she'd learned long ago that anger wouldn't feed her children. She'd learned to swallow it, to survive it, to rise above it even when the world insisted on pushing her down. "The money doesn't belong to me," she said, meeting the older man's eyes. "So I won't take something that will bring me no happiness. I work hard for what I have. I don't steal." Before we continue with Adana's story of heartbreak and resilience, welcome back if you're returning, and if you're new here, subscribe. This journey of betrayal, forgiveness, and unexpected love isn't easy, but it's worth it. Drop a comment below. Do you think Adana should forgive those who wronged her? Now let's dive back in. The room fell silent. Somewhere in the back, a door opened. Footsteps echoed across the polished floor, each one deliberate, commanding. The men parted like water, and Adana found herself staring at him. Kong Minho. Even without knowing his name, she could tell he was the one in charge. Everything about him screamed power, from the way he carried himself to the expensive cut of his suit. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were sharp as they studied her. "You're the one who called." His English was flawless, his voice smooth but edged with something dangerous. "Yes. I found your briefcase at the bar after closing. I thought someone might need it." "You thought someone might need $2 million?" He stepped closer, and Adana forced herself not to step back. "You didn't think to keep it? To solve your problems?" How did he know she had problems? But then again, one look at her probably told him everything. Her uniform from the bar was wrinkled from a double shift. Her shoes were worn at the heels. The exhaustion she carried was written in every line of her face. "My problems are mine to solve," she said. "Not with stolen money." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or interest. He studied her for a long moment, and she felt exposed under that gaze, like he could see through her skin to all the broken pieces she kept hidden. "What's your name?" "Adana." "Adana." He repeated it, and the way he said it made something flutter in her chest that she immediately pushed down. This man was dangerous. Everything about this situation screamed danger. "You can go, Adana. Thank you for your honesty." She nodded, turning toward the door, desperate to escape before her legs gave out. But his voice stopped her. "However, I'm curious. Very curious about you." Those words followed her all the way home, echoing in her mind as she climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. She was so tired she could barely see straight. But sleep wouldn't come easy tonight. Not after what had happened. Not after looking into those eyes and feeling something shift in the air between them. The apartment was dark and quiet. Mrs. Chun, her elderly neighbor who watched the twins when Adana worked late, had left a note saying Kofi and Amma were already asleep. Adana crept into their small bedroom, her heart squeezing as she looked at her babies curled up together. Kofi's inhaler sat on the nightstand, a constant reminder of how fragile life could be. She brushed a curl from Amma's forehead and pressed a kiss to each of their cheeks. "Mama loves you," she whispered. "Everything I do is for you." She'd been 19 when her life shattered. 19 and studying nursing at university in France. So close to finishing her degree. So close to making her mother's dream come true. Her mother, who had died bringing her into this world, whose last breath had been Adana's first. Her father, Mr. Lee, had loved her desperately because of it, had poured all his grief and love into raising her. But then he'd remarried. Celeste's mother had been elegant and cold, and Celeste herself had inherited that coldness. From the moment they'd moved into Mr. Lee's home, Celeste had looked at Adana with unveiled hatred. Not because of anything Adana had done, but simply because of what she was. Because her skin was dark and Mr. Lee's love for her was bright, and Celeste couldn't stand living in that shadow. The party had been Celeste's idea, a celebration before final exams. She'd said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Adana had been reluctant, but Sophie, who was Celeste's friend and the only one who'd ever been kind to her, had convinced her to go. Just for an hour, Sophie had promised. You deserve to have some fun. She remembered the drink tasting strange, remembered the room spinning, remembered waking up in a bed that wasn't hers, her body aching, her mind foggy with horror and confusion. The man was already gone, but his scent lingered on the sheets, and she'd known with terrible certainty what had happened. She'd stumbled home in the early morning light, and Celeste had been waiting with their father. The lies had poured from Celeste's mouth like poison. Father, I tried to stop her, Celeste had said, tears streaming down her face in a performance worthy of an award. She's been sneaking out for weeks, going to clubs, meeting men. I didn't want to tell you because I hoped she'd stop, but last night she didn't come home at all. Mr. Lee's face had crumbled. Adana, is this true? No, father, I swear. Celeste took me to a party. Someone drugged my drink. I don't remember. Don't remember? Celeste had laughed bitterly. Or don't want to admit what you did. Father, she's lying to cover up her reckless behavior. Everyone at the party saw her flirting, drinking. I wasn't. Enough. Mr. Lee's voice had cracked like thunder. Adana had never heard him sound like that, so full of disappointment and rage. I raised you better than this. Your mother would be ashamed. Those words had cut deeper than any knife. Adana had stood there, watching her father's love turn to disgust, and she'd known that nothing she said would matter. Celeste had planned this perfectly, and Mr. Lee believed every word. When she discovered she was pregnant 6 weeks later, everything had fallen apart completely. Mr. Lee had called her a disgrace to their family name. He'd told her to leave and never come back, that she was no longer his daughter. She'd packed a single bag and left France with nothing but the clothes on her back and a baby growing in her belly. No, 2 babies. The ultrasound had shown twins, and Adana had cried for hours in that clinic. How could she raise one child alone, let alone 2? She'd found work at a bar in Seoul, drawn there by some instinct she couldn't name. Maybe because her father was Korean, and some part of her still felt connected to that heritage even after he'd rejected her. She'd worked through her pregnancy, saved every coin, and when Kofi and Amma were born, she'd held them and promised they would never know the poverty she'd endured, the shame she'd carried. But promises were easier made than kept. 3 years had passed since then. 3 years of working double shifts, of stretching every dollar, of watching her children grow without their father because she didn't even know who he was. That night remained a blur of fractured images and nauseating fear. The knock on her door the next morning startled her from her thoughts. It was her landlady, Mrs. Park, and the woman's face was twisted with its usual greedy expression. Rent was due yesterday, Adana. I can't keep giving you extensions. I know, Mrs. Park. I get paid tomorrow. I'll have it then, I promise. Tomorrow isn't good enough. I want it today, or you're out. The woman's eyes were cold. I have other people interested in this apartment. People who pay on time. Adana's chest tightened. Please, just one more day? My children. Not my problem. Mrs. Park turned to leave, then paused. Actually, something strange happened this morning. Men in black suits came by. Very expensive looking. They asked about you. Fear shot through Adana's veins. What did they want? They asked if you lived here, how much your rent was. Mrs. Park's eyes gleamed with curiosity. Who are you involved with, girl? I'm not involved with anyone. But she knew. Somehow, she knew it was him. Kang Minho. He'd said he was curious about her. But this was something else entirely. This was invasion, surveillance. What did he want? She got her answer that evening when she arrived at the bar for her shift. Mr. Kim, the owner, pulled her aside with an odd expression on his face. Your rent has been paid, he said quietly. Adana froze. What? 3 years in advance. Men came this afternoon with cash. They said it was taken care of, that you shouldn't worry about housing anymore. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. 3 years. That was tens of thousands of dollars. No one did something like that without expecting something in return, and the thought of what Kang Minho might expect made her stomach turn. I can't accept that, she said firmly. I need to pay it back. Mr. Kim shrugged. I don't think you understand what kind of man paid it, Adana. This isn't charity you can refuse. This is a gift from someone very powerful, and refusing gifts from powerful people can be dangerous. She worked her shift in a daze, her mind spinning. When she finally clocked out near midnight, exhaustion dragged at every step. She'd started doing food deliveries on the side to make extra money, and tonight she had one last order to drop off before she could go home to her babies. The address led her to an upscale neighborhood she'd never been to before. She balanced the food containers carefully as she approached the house, but before she could ring the bell, a familiar voice called out, "Adana, is that you?" She turned and felt her blood run cold. Celeste stood on the sidewalk, her mouth falling open in shock. She was dressed expensively, her fair skin glowing in the streetlight, her hair perfectly styled. Everything about her screamed wealth and privilege. "What are you doing here?" Celeste's shock quickly morphed into cruel delight. "Oh my God, you're a delivery woman? This is too perfect." "Move aside, Celeste. I have a job to do." "A job?" Celeste laughed, stepping closer. "Is this what your life has become? Delivering food? How pathetic. How are your little mistakes doing? What were their names again? The bastards you had." "Don't." Adana's voice came out low and dangerous. "Don't you dare talk about my children." "Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? You got pregnant like a fool and ruined your life. Father was right to disown you." Celeste's smile was venomous. "I heard one of them is sick too. Asthma, isn't it? Poor little Kofi, struggling to breathe. I wonder how you're managing to pay for his medication on a delivery woman's salary." "Oh wait, you're probably not managing at all." The slap came before Adana could stop herself. Her palm connected with Celeste's cheek with a sharp crack that echoed down the quiet street. Celeste stumbled backward, her hand flying to her face, shock replacing the cruelty in her eyes. "You bitch." Celeste lunged forward, her fingers curled like claws. But before she could reach Adana, a hand caught her wrist midair. The grip was firm, unyielding, and Celeste gasped as she was pulled backward. Adana's eyes widened as she saw him. Kong Minho stood between them, his expression carved from ice. He held Celeste's wrist with one hand, his entire presence radiating controlled danger. The air itself seemed to thicken with tension. "If you touch my woman again," he said softly, his voice deadly calm, "you'll discover why people fear my name more than they fear death itself." Adana's heart stuttered. "Your woman?" "I'm not." He turned to her, and something in his eyes made her words die in her throat. There was possession there, protection, something fierce in claiming that she didn't understand but felt all the way to her bones. "Of course you are my woman," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Then he turned back to Celeste, who had gone pale. "Do we have a problem here?" Celeste's mouth opened and closed. Her eyes darted between them, and Adana saw the exact moment recognition hit. Celeste knew who he was. Everyone in Seoul knew the name Kong Minho, the billionaire whose business empire stretched across Asia, whose connections ran deep into places most people didn't dare speak about. No problem," Celeste stammered, backing away. "I didn't know she was. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize she was under my protection?" Minho's voice remained soft, but there was steel beneath it. "Now you do. I suggest you remember that." Celeste practically ran back toward the house, and Adana heard her friend Sophie calling after her from the doorway. Sophie's face was white with shock, her eyes fixed on Minho with something like fear. The moment they were gone, Adana rounded on him. "What are you doing here? And what gives you the right to call me your woman? I don't belong to anyone." "You're angry." He didn't seem surprised or bothered by it. "Of course I'm angry. You paid my rent without asking me. You've been having me watched. And now you show up and—" She stopped, her hands shaking. "I don't need your charity or your protection. I can take care of myself." "Can you?" He studied her face, and she hated how vulnerable she felt under that gaze. "You work 2 jobs, you have 6 children, and that woman just told you exactly how bad things are. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? When was the last time you weren't worried about money? That's none of your business. You made it my business when you returned my briefcase." He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne, subtle and expensive. Most people would have kept it, used it to solve their problems. But you didn't. You did the right thing even when the wrong thing would have been easier. Do you know how rare that is? So you're paying my rent out of gratitude? She didn't believe that for a second. I'm paying your rent because I want to know more about you. Because something about you intrigues me, and I don't get intrigued easily. His eyes searched hers. That night when I saw you, you looked fearless. But just now, you looked broken down, timid. Don't let people like her make you small, Adana. You're stronger than that. Why? She asked. Does it matter? It's enough to solve all your problems. You could go back to school, finish your nursing degree. Your son could get the best treatment for his asthma. You could give them everything. Everything except the truth. Everything except their father, though Adana still didn't know who that was. Everything except the life they'd started to build here, fragile as it was. No, Adana said. Celeste's face twisted with fury. What do you mean, no? Are you stupid? This is more money than you'll ever see. The answer is no. Adana met her stepsister's eyes steadily. I don't know what you're afraid of, but I'm not running anymore. I've spent 3 years running from what you did to me. I'm done. You're making a mistake. Celeste's voice dropped to something almost desperate. You don't understand what you're getting into. Just take the money and go. Get out of my bar. Celeste left, but the encounter left Adana shaken. Something was happening that she didn't understand. Currents moving beneath the surface that she couldn't see. That night, she held Kofi a little tighter as she gave him his inhaler treatment, watching his small chest rise and fall with each breath. Mama, why are you sad? Amma asked, crawling into her lap. I'm not sad, baby. Just tired. You're always tired, Amma said with the brutal honesty of a 3-year-old. I wish someone could help you not be tired. 2 days later, someone did. But not in the way Adana expected. She was walking home from the market, Kofi's hand in hers while Amma skipped ahead when a van pulled up beside them. Before Adana could react, men in masks jumped out. She screamed, trying to grab Kofi, but someone shoved her hard. She hit the pavement, pain exploding through her shoulder, and watched in horror as they grabbed her son. Kofi, she scrambled to her feet, but the van was already pulling away. Amma was crying, screaming for her brother. Adana pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called the police, but even as she did, she knew who was really behind this. Her phone rang an hour later. Unknown number. If you want to see your son alive, Celeste's voice said, cold and hard. You'll leave Seoul by tomorrow. I'll send him to you once you're gone. Cross the border into the next city, and I'll let him go. Celeste, please. Adana's voice broke. He needs his medicine. He has asthma. He could die without. Then you'd better hurry. The line went dead. Adana stood in her apartment, Amma clinging to her leg and sobbing, and felt the world crumbling around her. She had no money for a bus ticket, no way to track Celeste, no power at all. She was exactly what her stepsister had always said she was. Nothing. Powerless, alone. Then her door burst open. Sophie stood there, breathing hard, her face streaked with tears. I know where Kofi is, she gasped. But we need help. We need Kong Min-ho. How do you? There's no time to explain. Come with me. Now. They ran through the streets, Sophie leading her to a building Adana recognized. The same building where she'd returned the briefcase. The guards tried to stop them, but Sophie was screaming Minho's name, and somehow they were let through. He was in a meeting when they burst into his office. Minho looked up, irritation flashing across his face, but it vanished the moment he saw Adana's expression. What happened? My son. The words came out broken. Someone took my son. Who? Sophie stepped forward. Before you ask how I know about your one-night stand 3 years ago, before you ask anything, you need to know that your son is in danger. Your son, Mr. Kong. Kofi is yours. The silence that followed was deafening. Minho's face went perfectly still, and Adana felt the world tilt sideways. What? She whispered. Sophie's words tumbled out in a rush. That night, Adana. The party. You were drugged and put in the wrong room. It was supposed to be empty, but it wasn't. Mr. Kong was there, drunk, and his men hadn't arranged anyone for him. But you were there, and she choked on a sob. I'm so sorry. I've lived with this guilt for 3 years. I should have stopped it. I should have saved you. But Celeste was my friend, and I was scared, and I just went along with everything. Adana couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. She looked at Minho and saw her children's faces in his features. Kofi's serious eyes. Amma's smile. How had she not seen it before? Where is he? Minho's voice was deadly calm. Where's my son? I think Celeste has him. She told me years ago what room she'd put Adana in. She didn't know you were the one in that room until 2 weeks ago when she saw you together. She's been terrified ever since. If Adana stays with you, if you find out about the children, Celeste loses everything. Her power over Adana, her position, all of it. Minho was already on his phone, barking orders in Korean. Within minutes, his men were mobilizing. He pulled up security footage, traced phone signals, used resources Adana didn't know existed. And all the while, she stood there, the truth crashing over her in waves. This man was her children's father. This powerful, dangerous man had been the one that night. He hadn't known. She hadn't known. But Celeste had figured it out, and now Kofi was paying the price for her sister's hatred. Found him. One of Minho's men called out coordinates. Abandoned warehouse on the city outskirts. They moved fast. Minho insisted Adana stay behind with Alma, but she refused. He's my son. I'm coming. The drive was the longest of her life. When they arrived, Minho's men surrounded the building. Through the windows, Adana could see Kofi, small and scared, sitting in a chair. Celeste stood nearby, pacing, her phone in her hand. Minho kicked the door open himself. His men flooded in, guns drawn, and Celeste screamed. Kofi looked up, saw his mother, and started crying. Mama! Adana ran to him, scooping him into her arms. His small body was trembling, and she could hear the wheeze in his breathing. I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're safe now. Minho walked slowly toward Celeste, who had backed against the wall. You kidnapped my son. I didn't know he was sick, Celeste said frantically. I wasn't going to hurt him. I just needed her gone. You needed what? To destroy your sister's life again. Minho's voice was ice. My men will take you to the police. You'll be charged with kidnapping. No, please. Celeste fell to her knees. I'll do anything. Please don't. But Minho had already turned away. He knelt beside Adana and Kofi, and for the first time, she saw his hands shake as he reached out to touch his son's face. He needs his inhaler, Adana said quietly. It's at home. My men will get it. And a doctor. We'll take him to the hospital now. Minho looked at Kofi, really looked at him, and something broke in his expression. I didn't know. All this time, I didn't know. They took Kofi to the best hospital in Seoul. The doctors treated him, gave him oxygen, stabilized his breathing. Alma clung to Adana the whole time, refusing to let go. And Minho stayed with them, his presence solid and unwavering. When Kofi finally fell asleep, safe and breathing easily, Minho pulled Adana into the hallway. That night, he said, I need you to understand. I was drunk, yes, but I thought my men had arranged someone. When I woke up and you were gone, I realized something was wrong. I searched for you. For months, I searched. But you disappeared. Because I was pregnant and disowned. Adana's voice was hollow. My father believed Celeste's lies. He thought I was living recklessly, sleeping around. He called me a disgrace. He didn't know the truth. No one knew the truth except Celeste and Sophie. Tears streamed down her face. You destroyed my life that night. I lost everything. My education, my family, my future. I know. His voice cracked. And I can never undo that. But let me try to make it right. Let me give you back what was taken. How? She laughed bitterly. How do you give back 3 years of struggling, of working myself to exhaustion, of watching my son fight to breathe because I couldn't afford better care? I'll send you to the best nursing school. I'll support your education, your career. I'll give our children everything they need. He stepped closer. And I'll find your father. I'll make sure he knows the truth. Why? Why do all this? Because they're my children. Because you returned my briefcase when you could have kept it. Because when I see you, I see someone who's been knocked down over and over, but keeps getting up. His eyes held hers. Because I want to know you, Adana. The real you. Not the broken, exhausted version your sister created. It took 2 days before Minho's investigators found enough evidence. Security footage from the party 3 years ago. Testimony from others who'd been there. Sophie's full confession. Everything pointed to the same truth. Celeste had drugged Adana and orchestrated everything. Minho called Mr. Lee himself. The old man arrived at the hospital pale and shaking. When he saw Adana with the twins, his legs nearly gave out. Adana. She stiffened but didn't turn away. Minho had shown him everything, told him everything. Mr. Lee knew now what his beloved stepdaughter had done to his real daughter. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have known Celeste was lying. But I was blind, and I let my anger cloud my judgment. Can you ever forgive me? Adana looked at him for a long moment. She thought about hatred, about carrying grudges, about letting bitterness poison what remained of her life. Then she looked at her children, at Minho standing quietly nearby, and made her choice. Yes, father. I forgive you. Mr. Lee wept. He held her carefully, like she might break, and met his grandchildren for the first time. Kofi was shy, but Amma climbed into his lap and asked if he knew any Korean words. The old man taught her simple phrases, and Adana watched her father smile for the first time in 3 years. Celeste was arrested, but when the court date came, Adana did something no one expected. She asked the prosecutor to reduce the charges. Why would you do that? Celeste asked when they faced each other in a private room. After everything I did to you? Because repairing evil with evil solves nothing, Adana said quietly. You're my sister. You're broken and hurting, and sending you to prison for years won't fix that. It'll only make you hate me more. Celeste fell to her knees. I don't understand. I ruined your life. I destroyed everything you had. Why would you show me mercy? Because someone has to break the cycle. Adana knelt beside her. You hated me because of my complexion, because father loved me. But that hatred only hurt you, Celeste. It poisoned everything you touched. I'm choosing not to let it poison me too. I'm so sorry. Celeste sobbed. I'm so sorry. I was jealous and cruel, and I can't take back what I did. No, you can't. But you can move forward. You can choose to be better. The charges were reduced. Celeste served 6 months and entered therapy. When she was released, Adana was there waiting. It took time, but slowly, carefully, they began to rebuild something that resembled a relationship. Not sisters yet, maybe not ever, but something less broken than before. Sophie helped with that. She'd been carrying her guilt like chains, and Adana's forgiveness freed her. The 3 women met sometimes for coffee, navigating the complicated terrain of healing. Meanwhile, Minho kept his promises. He enrolled Adana in the best nursing program in Seoul. He made sure Kofi had the finest doctors, the best medication. He spent time with the twins, learning to be a father, teaching them Korean words, and taking them to parks and museums. And slowly, carefully, he courted Adana, not with money or power, but with patience. He showed up at her classes with coffee. He watched the twins so she could study. He asked about her dreams, her hopes, what she wanted beyond survival. He let her see past the Mafia boss, past the billionaire, to the man underneath who'd been searching for her without knowing it. I don't know how to do this, she admitted one night after the twins were asleep. They sat on her small balcony, the city lights spread below them. I don't know how to trust you. Then don't. Not yet. He took her hand carefully. Let me earn it. Day by day, moment by moment. I'll prove I'm not the man who hurt you that night. I'm the man who wants to spend the rest of his life making up for it. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were hard days, arguments, moments when the past rose up between them. But there were also good days. Days when Kofi called him Appa for the first time. Days when Amma insisted on teaching him how to braid her hair. Days when Adana looked at him and felt something warm unfold in her chest that might have been love. 2 years later, she graduated from nursing school. Minho and the twins sat in the front row, cheering loudly. Mr. Lee was there too, tears streaming down his face as he watched his daughter achieve the dream that had been stolen from her. That night, Minho took her to the beach. The twins were with Mr. Lee, and it was just the 2 of them for the first time in months. I have something to ask you, he said. Adana turned to find him on one knee, a ring in his hand that caught the moonlight. I know I don't deserve you. I know the circumstances that brought us together were terrible, but you've taught me something important, Adana. You've taught me that people can choose who they become. That forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing in the world. You chose to forgive your sister, your father, even me. You chose not to let bitterness define you. His voice shook. Will you choose me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life being worthy of you? She looked at him, this powerful man kneeling in the sand, and saw everything they'd survived to get here. The pain, the struggle, the slow healing. She thought about her children, about the family they'd built from broken pieces. Yes, she said, I choose you. The wedding was small. Mr. Lee walked her down the aisle. Celeste was there too, sober and genuinely happy, and she'd brought her new boyfriend, a kind French teacher who made her laugh. Sophie cried through the whole ceremony. The twins wore matching outfits and carried rings on small pillows, taking their job very seriously. Adana finished her nursing program and got a job at a pediatric hospital. Minho supported her career while running his businesses. They raised their children together, teaching them both Korean and Igbo, making sure they understood both sides of their heritage. Years later, when Alma asked her mother how she'd survived everything that happened, Adana thought carefully before answering. "I learned that holding on to hate only hurts the person carrying it," she said. "Your Aunt Celeste hated me for my skin color, and that hatred almost destroyed both our lives. But when I chose forgiveness instead of revenge, I freed us both. That's the real power, baby. Not money or strength, but the choice to respond to evil with grace. Like you returned the briefcase," Alma said wisely. "You could have kept the money, but you did the right thing." Exactly. We don't always get to choose what happens to us, but we always get to choose how we respond. And that choice defines who we become. It was a lesson Adana carried with her every day. In the hospital, treating children who reminded her of Kofi. At home with her family. In her relationship with Celeste, which had grown into something resembling genuine sisterhood. She'd been broken by circumstances beyond her control, but she'd chosen to heal with grace. And that choice had made all the difference. If Adana's journey of forgiveness and love touched your heart, show some love by hitting that like button, and don't forget to hype this story by clicking the hype button. It helps us reach more viewers who love stories like this. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. What did you think about Adana's choice to forgive Celeste? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.